Hi everyone, welcome to Leisrealtalk. I hope your weekend has been off to a good start. It feels great to do a Sunday morning program. All right, someone asked me if I have flowers. Yes, I do. Here it is. All right, so let's get started. The Russian-Ukraine war has dragged on for more than 3 years. Hundreds, if not more, Chinese mercenaries have joined the war with most of them siding with Russia. As prospects for a Russia-Ukraine ceasefire grow increasingly complex and uncertain, a Chinese mercenary in Ukraine offers us rare insights from inside the war. Speaking from an underground bunker in Bakhmut, I hope I'm pronouncing the city correctly. He was interviewed by one of China's leading or best investigative journalists who now lives in Spain. The mercenary expressed a desire to reveal the truth about the war while he still can and before it's too late. So today we'll first talk about who the mercenary is and his story and why he chose to fight for Russia. And then most importantly, we'll devote most of today's program to discuss what he has seen and experienced on the front lines in terms of weapons, supplies, casualties, and management of the war. And also the most important part is at the end, that is, what's the situation now from the Russian side? The journalist who did the program is Mr. Cai Jing, one of China's most outspoken TV hosts and best investigative journalists. Actually, let me add her picture to the frame here. That's I think the thumbnail of her program. So she because of her outspokenness, she left China in 2017 and moved to Spain. Actually, when she started her career, she wasn't a trained journalist. She studied accounting. And then after graduation, she decided to, be a TV host in Hunan. And then she became very popular. Later, she studied at Beijing Broadcasting Institute and became a leading host and journalist at CCTV. Like I said, her outspokenness ultimately resulted in her program being suspended. So now she lives in Barcelona with her husband and daughter and has her own YouTube channel. On March 15th, she released a 44-minute interview of a Chinese mercenary who has been fighting for Russia in the Donbas area of Ukraine for the past 18 months. The man she interviewed is Ma Kelong, a 30-year-old Chinese mercenary from Shandong. I know the name Ma Kelong sounds like the Chinese translation of the French president Macron, but that's what his Chinese name is, Ma Kelong. So here they are in the program. This is taken from the program. Let's talk about the excuse me. Let's talk about the mercenary, who he is. He's from Shandong. His name is Ma Kelong. I'll address him as Ma in this program. When the Russian-Ukraine war broke out, he was a PLA officer at the regiment level. And before going to Russia to join the war, his personal relations took a dramatic turn. He broke up with his girlfriend and cut ties with his parents. When asked why he joined a war that's not related to his country or himself, he said money was one reason. He's paid roughly 15,000 yuan a month, which is about $2,000. But he said he couldn't buy anything with the money as there's nothing to buy in Russia. And he said the pay isn't impressive at all, given that he works 365 days a year without any break, and that the job is a life-threatening one. However, money wasn't everything that made Ma go to Russia. He has another motivation. He said that although he had been in military service, He never experienced war and wanted to have real war experience. He had always wanted to join the French Foreign Legion, but getting an European visa was difficult. It was nearly impossible for him to get an EU visa. Thus, going to Russia became an option. When asked if he had no problem getting, let's put it this way, when asked, assuming if he had no problem getting a Ukrainian visa, would he fight for Ukraine? And he said he would. He said many Chinese mercenaries chose to fight for Russia because it's easy for them to obtain Russian visa. He suggested that if getting a Ukrainian visa wasn't a problem, many Chinese might choose to fight for Ukraine. However, he also acknowledged that many Chinese fight for Russia because they believe helping Russia is helping China. That's from the CCP propaganda. Ma is a member of the assault team. The interview was conducted in an underground bunker in Bakhmut, in an area that's only 5 to 6 kilometers from the Ukrainian troops. So he said this. He said, "I know I may die here one day, so I decided to share some of the truth. Our country and the Chinese people haven't experienced war for a long time. I want to tell them what soldiers go through during war. I hope China can remain stable and not casually provoke or participate in wars. Some people got hyped up from watching war movies, such as the movie called Wolf Warriors, which is a CCP propaganda movie. And then he said, real war is as brutal as hell. Then the journalist asked him, but you're fighting for one side. Don't you know what you are fighting for? And then he replied, the Ukrainians see us as invaders. The Russians say we're fighting this war for the stability of the Donbas area and to prevent NATO expansion. To me, I don't take sides. It's just a job for me. And then the journalist asked, but your job kills. He said it's very rare that he actually confronts an enemy face to face. On battlefield, life and death is a matter of seconds. He has no time to think about the purpose of the war, but every day he thinks about how to survive. He doesn't want to think, as he's afraid that thinking and rationalization will demoralize him, which can cost his life. When he thinks and feels about things, he said he will be weak and has thus intentionally made himself desensitized. Now let's talk about his challenges in Russia or his experiences of the war. First is discrimination. Mr. Ma resents the fact that Russians discriminate the Chinese, the Arabians, the Africans, and other peoples of color. He talked about this in one of his earlier videos released on social media. So let me replay that clip again. I had also featured him in one of my earlier videos on the Chinese mercenaries. So here, let me, where did it go? Okay, let me start from the beginning. Here we go.
我真实的信息能不能让国内的这个俄粉冷静点？他们不相信的，为什么去人家国家当炮灰？你来之前我不知道他把我当炮灰呀，对不对？对，你不尊重我，那我为什么要给你卖命呢？对不对？从我到罗斯托夫那个训练营开始，就有严重的种族歧视，歧视这个黑人，歧视这个中国人。歧视我为什么要给你卖命呢？我是带着善意去帮助这个国家的军队，你把我当成来这打黑工的了，当成来讨饭的了，那我为什么还要尊重你？我奔着你一个月这点钱来的吗？基地里边干点活，干点这个，干点那个，就闲不下来，劈柴。那俄罗斯人就不用干活，就我们外国人，你就停不下来，闲着就给你找点事儿干。对，你说好歹我也是老兵了，对吧？我在这个俄罗斯军队我也服务了这么长时间了，你不干吧，他就给你穿小鞋，他就不想让你活着离开这个地方。这人还分个3、6、9等的， 确实不容易，能活每一天都是幸运的。对，到了这就很被动了。所以说，我说劝很多人不停的去劝，讲述这些比较真实、比较残酷的这个情况，很多人都不听，上赶着往这边来，很多人来了就没了，后悔了他也来不及。
Okay, so let me come back. So in this interview, the interview that he did recently, this video clip was posted on social media last year. And then in the recent interview with Miss Chai, the journalist, Ma said that his Russian officers once threatened to kill the mercenaries after the war. Upon hearing this, the translator, who was an Egyptian, got mad and refused to translate. And Mr. Ma was upset too and wanted to quit. He said the contract he signed had a clause or has a clause that allows him to quit after 3 months. But when he requested to leave, he was told he couldn't quit. Now let's talk about the weapon. The weapon Ma was given was a machine gun made in 1948. He confronted with his superior by saying that such an antique gun is useless, but was told that he'd better take it. And the gun had 4 previous owners already. The gun was engraved with 4 bars, each representing a deceased previous owner. I actually took a picture of the screenshot. Here's Mr. Ma during his younger years as a PLA officer. Where am I? This is it showing? I don't know. I think my screen froze. Can you guys see anything? Hold on. Oh, here we go. Yeah, this is Mr. Ma during his younger years as a PLA officer. And this is actually the screenshot. I tried to the screenshot from the video that he filmed in darkness in his bunker that shows the 4 bars engraved on his antique gun. I'm just trying to give you a feel of what it looks like. And then also the helmet he got was old and had holes on it. So Ma used his salary and bought a new helmet, bulletproof outfits, and a gun. But one day he was taken directly to the front line from an infirmary, and his new gears were not given to him. When asked why the Russians didn't give him the equipment he bought for himself, he replied, "They don't care. Soldiers need it to be dispatched, and they don't care. And they think whether you have the gears or not make no difference. Many people are expected to die." At the front line, he was given 2 pieces of rusty iron plates as protective gears. And here's the picture of the iron plates taken from the video. And then the 2 iron plates were just removed from the body of a dead soldier. To get his protective gears he bought back, he filed a complaint against his commander to the Russian military police. The result, he was beaten and locked up in a dungeon, which was a tiny space where he couldn't even stand. Here's a picture. Here's a picture of himself in the dungeon. He was allowed to leave the dungeon only once every day for toilet. The reason he was allowed to keep his cell phone in the dungeon was that he needed the cell phone to do the translation with the Russian guards. Now, 2 Russian soldiers who refused to kill were locked there with him. The 2 Russians agreed to fight defensively, but refused to fight offensively because they didn't want to kill. After being locked up in the dungeon for 21 days, Mr. Ma escaped while on a bathroom break. He jumped from a 3rd-story building and escaped in another Russian military unit with a different designation. When asked about what happened to the 2 Russian soldiers, Mr. Ma did not want to talk about it and said it was too dark to describe. But what we do know is that the 2 Russians never, ever gave up their principle of not killing. After he ran away from the dungeon, Ma lost the will to fight. When asked if he had thought of quitting, he said it was impossible to leave. The Chinese embassy in Russia wouldn't help them. There's another mercenary who pleaded with the Chinese government for help, but was turned down. This man is Sun Ruiqi. Initially, he was very gung-ho about the war, as evident in the first 20 seconds of the next video that I'm going to play you. However, he quickly became sick and demoralized and appealed to the Chinese netizens for help. So let me play you another clip where you see another mercenary's story. Hold on, let me start from the very beginning. 同志们好，同志们辛苦了，首战用我，用我必胜，用我必胜。Okay? By the way, what they just chanted are the PLA's slogans, right? And so these are obviously all Chinese mercenaries in Russia.
出发了啊！大部队开拔了，出发了。大家好，我现在在乌克兰。这现在我发的是一个求助帖，战场没有把我击倒，病痛把我击倒了。我现在犯了很严重的心肌梗塞、心绞痛，得了重感冒，嗓子里面全部溃烂了，关节很疼痛，这面没有任何的医疗条件，医生只有最简单的开药和心电图，就说我没有问题。我说我要健康原因退出，我走了将近40分钟的路，下着大雪才连到了一点信号，给大家发送这个信息。我联系了中国驻俄罗斯大使馆的领保，他说是个人行为，不管。我现在请求广大网友，也请求广大的中国朋友们帮助我联系中国外交部。我现在需要解除合同，我要回国休养。我的心脏病很严重，我已经几乎生活不能自理了，这边什么医疗条件都没有，我会死在这里的，很难受。我已经持续1个礼拜这种情况了，请大家所有人帮我艾特联系中国外交部，谢谢大家。我要回中国，我要解除合同。
Okay. All right. Yeah, okay. So by the way, here's the picture. Here's a picture of the Russian who was one of the 2 Russians who were locked up in the dungeon with Mr. Ma. Who refused to kill people, and this is the picture Ma took of one of them. So okay, let's come back. Yeah, let's talk about this. Let me come back. So the journalist in the interview, the journalist asked Ma, perhaps the Chinese government thinks you came here on your own and China is neither in favor of or against your action, and that's why they don't, the Chinese officials don't want to intervene. Then Ma said, India also has many mercenaries in Russia. After some of them pleaded for help, Modi visited Russia in July 2024 and raised the issue with Putin. 2 months after Modi's visit, over 90 Indian mercenaries were released. What Ma said was true. This story was reported by Western media. However, the Chinese mercenaries weren't released upon their contract coming to full term. Instead, their contracts were automatically renewed with no option to cancel. Remember this man that I introduced in one of my previous programs? He called himself the warden. He talked about being forced to renew his contract. And after his assistant in Henan declared his death, he miraculously reappeared on social media and announced that he has returned to a non-combative position. The other man who claimed that he had a heart condition also was able to return to China. Nobody knew how they left the front line. Ms. Chai, the journalist, said in her program that some mercenaries were able to quit by intentionally injuring themselves, while others resorted to briberies, but no one was able to really escape the front line. Now, when asked if he would just flee the war zone, Ma said it's impossible because there are many checkpoints and he could be dead if someone opens fire at him. Let's now talk about casualties. He said the average survival time for soldiers, let me come back to this. I like to stay on this page. He said the average survival time for soldiers in fight zones is 3 days. Most of the mercenaries who trained with him had died. Only few lived. He said for every Ukrainian soldier who died, there are 5 to 6 Russian casualties. The ratio between Russian and Ukrainian casualties is 5 or 6 to 1. And most mercenaries don't expect themselves to live very long. And even those who survived suffer mental breakdowns, including Russian soldiers. He said injured soldiers, often Russians, who are, after being sent to hospitals, suffer mental breakdowns and became mentally crazy after taking a few sips of alcohol. He said some of these soldiers have been fighting for 2 to 3 years and have developed extreme anxieties. Some resorted to narcotics to relieve their anxiety. When asked where they obtained the narcotics, Ma said some parts of Ukraine actually grow them. He said he didn't smoke, but in Ukraine, he had to rely on cigarettes to relieve anxiety. He said being stuck in dark and damp underground bunkers for long periods of time with no one to talk to is mentally torturous. He estimated that among the hundreds of Chinese mercenaries, over half has died. Many of them didn't get the promised death gratuity, which is 5 million rubles, or about $60,000. Then the journalist asked him a profound question. She asked, if you fight for your country, you'll be at least remembered as a hero. But how do you feel about being a mercenary, fighting for a different country and facing possible death? He said, I'm totally insignificant here, just like a fly. There is no value or ideological significance to me. That's what I said. I don't pick a side. I'm just an ordinary person who joined war because of a wrong decision. My role is just that of a grunt, or more accurately, cannon fodder. Let's talk about the chaos in the Russian military. One of the biggest challenges Ma described was communication and language breakdown. He gave the example of, this language breakdown or communication breakdown is attributable to, first of all, language barriers, because people came from different countries and spoke different languages. And the other is the amount of casualties. People who died, didn't pass on the information or knowledge they should share. So he gave the example of, he gave actually a couple of examples. So one thing he said, when a bomb arrives, he doesn't understand the instructions about where he should run. Is it left or right? Right? So that could be a deadly mistake if he doesn't understand the instructions. And also, once he went out to use the bathroom, and on his way back, he saw a thread. It was a landmine. Luckily, he didn't step on it, but if he did, he would have died. He asked his teammates why they didn't tell him there were landmines around. He said people who knew about the landmines might have all died. The chaos on the front line was witnessed by other Chinese mercenaries who wrote about it. So here's one post. Here's one. So someone wrote, he said, this post said, after we entered the Ukrainian trenches, chaos erupted. A mercenary from Nepal, his hands were shaking. He couldn't stop shooting. He didn't kill any Ukrainians, but many of our soldiers. He then collapsed to the ground and suffered a spasm. And another post reads, what kind of war is this? The Russian Foreign Legion has no commander, no infantry tactics, no cover, no medical aid, no communication devices, no backup ammunition, no support, no coordination. Fortunately, the Ukrainians are just the same. After we got into the trenches, we saw an Ukrainian soldier, an old grandpa. He was so scared that he dropped the gun and ran away without even taking the safety off his gun. And then it continues. It says, everyone's running around like headless flies, and both the Russians and the Ukrainians are the same. Okay, let's talk about supplies. Supplies are limited. His bread was eaten by rats. There were a lot of rats. So here's a picture of his bread being devoured by rats. And he said Russian soldiers opened fire on each other when fighting for supplies. And on holidays, Ma was given chocolate, coffee, sausages, and tea, but only for photo opportunities. After the pictures were taken, the food would be taken back or taken away from him. And he said, please don't give me the food if you have to take them back. It's okay, I don't have them. But what's the point of giving them to me only for photos? Apparently, he said this happened quite often. When asked if he saw corruptions in the Russian military, Ma said that the commanders have a lot of power and the life of the soldiers is negligible. In the chaos of war, Ma found an unexpected friend, a stray cat amid the ruins. The little kitty, where's the little kitty? Oh, here we go. The little kitty followed him everywhere. Ma shared his food rations, and in return, the cat would often curl up beside him at night. They formed a bond that's rare in such harsh times. And also, when they found empty houses with piano, his teammate would play on the piano. And one day, while scrolling through Xiaohongshu, also known as the Little Red Book or Red Note, which is a Chinese social media app, Ma came across a post from a Ukrainian whose family had lived in Bakhmut for generations. Curious, he reached out, asking about the person's home, and the reply was heartbreaking. Their home has long been reduced to rubble and ashes. This exchange left Ma deeply conflicted. He felt a sense of guilt and a desire to connect with the Ukrainian, yet he also knew he needed to keep his emotions in check to survive. Reflecting on the situation, he said, I've chosen a side in this war and have to operate within its values. But that doesn't mean I don't have my own thoughts. I've faced mistreatment and discrimination from the Russians, making everything feel contradictory and complex. The journalist asked Ma why he didn't surrender to the Ukrainians. He said, as a mercenary, he doesn't have the option of, or he doesn't have the luxury of surrender. And he said, I'm not Russians. Russians and Ukrainians are both being forced by their governments to fight. They can understand and forgive each other on the battlefield. However, the Ukrainians see foreign mercenaries as people who want to make money or just to kill. They are more hostile toward us. He said, unless the war ends, the Ukrainians will not let him go. Neither will the Russians. He said no one wants him to leave the place alive. His only hope is to end the war, but the road to peace is difficult. Ms. Chai asked him at the end, how the Russians view the war now? And this is what he said. He said, they generally believe the war may end soon. They don't want to fight and all wish to go home. To be honest, that's the reality. They're all tired of war. Those who have experienced war don't want to go through it again, nor do they wish to exaggerate certain things. That's my opinion. In my view, those who promote wars and portray themselves as heroes are despicable because there are no heroes in war. Everyone is a villain because you have to kill. And then the journalist asked a poignant question. Does that include yourself? And he said, I think I'm one of them. Yes, I made a wrong decision and mistakenly joined a war that belongs to the Slavs. Every inch of this land is taken with blood. It's neither cool nor fun. It's inhumane and immoral. The day after the interview, Ma informed Ms. Chai that he was released from the assault team on the front line, and he was very happy. And on March 14th, the day before the program aired, Ms. Chai heard from Ma again. While he was escorting injured soldiers, they came under bombing. Ma was wounded in all 4 limbs and taken to a hospital. He told Ms. Chai, this is the best ending I could possibly imagine for myself. Ms. Chai said she heard joy in Ma's voice that he had not heard before. At the hospital, Ma couldn't sleep at night due to the pain, and he wrote a poem. So let me finish my program by reading you his poem, which I think is very well written. So here it is. He said, I savor the sting of pain. It reminds me I'm alive. Trees sprout anew after explosions. Houses rise again from ruins, but the dead do not return. War is a machine that devours all. The dead watch the living perish. The living yearn for the fallen to return. I'm in Bakhmut, a city ravaged by war, where swindlers, musicians, heroes, and cowards converge. In the program, Ma talked about feeling guilty when he saw people's homes reduced to ruins. He said he repents, even though he knows he's not directly responsible for the war. He's seen children begging for food in Donbass, and he hopes to do something to help them after the war ends. I provided you the link to the original program. It's in Chinese. Those of you who speaks or understands Chinese should watch it. It's very well made. It's very, it almost made me cry towards the end. I mean, it's just a YouTube video, but it's very, very insightful and very, very poignant. And the journalist and the mercenary remained very calm and relaxed throughout the interview. I mean, they really didn't express any emotions. But the calmer people are, the more rational people are, the more emotions they stir up in you because they make you think. So with that, I wrap up today's presentation. Let me see if people have any questions. Okay. Let me first of all thank the people who gave me super stickers. I saw them flash by. Let me acknowledge them. Here we go. Do I see a name? Oh, something flashed by. from Junal Garnett. Well, thank you, Junal. All right. From Wise-Lack, WSE-Lack. Well, thank you. All right. I also want to remind everyone that I released a new program this Thursday on in my other channel, and it's about the book from 2,500 years ago, the book, the Art of War. And so, since we're on the subject about war, I recommend you to my other channel. I recommend my other channel to you because I think we did a good job on that in that video. You should take a look. Chris, if you can, please provide the link to people here. Okay. Now, here's a question from James Johnson. When was the last time you did an episode on Chinese water security? Water security. Oh, that was a long time ago. I did that, I think, during the first year of my YouTube, the first year as a YouTuber. That was in 2021. China's water security. Yeah, China has a water crisis. It has a limited supply of water, and also pollution is another threat. The level of pollution in China's water sources is unbelievable. For that reason, many Chinese Americans refuse to buy food, even canned food from China, precisely because of the water. Because 70% of the ingredients in food is water. So we don't buy food from China because the water is terribly polluted. Oh, here's another support from Elijah Snow. History would make an amazing movie about this conflict that could show the whole story from an outside perspective. Yes, I agree. Absolutely. Well said. Okay, here's a question forwarded by Chris from Mr. Makunachi. Hey Lei, I'm currently reading about Empress Dowager Cixi. Is that Cixi? Was he really a benevolent figurehead or a power-hungry autocrat? That's a very complex question. I think she's both. To answer your question directly, because in today's culture, when democracy is the prevailing form of government, when we look at history, China's history, we tend to call the days when China was ruled by emperor or empresses, we would call them an autocratic state, because if you compare that to democracy, then they are, because the emperors were not voted by the people. But then I would still call emperors, because they were the Chinese emperors and empresses, they believe they are heaven's representative on earth to rule. So everything they do has to conform to the heaven's will. They have to follow heaven's direction. So they are required to be benevolent in nature. They cannot, unlike today's many of the heads of state, even though they're voted by the people, but they have so much power, right? But back in the days, they are, first of all, they believe in the heaven. They do have bosses. The emperors do have bosses, and their bosses are the heaven, right? The divine beings who supervise them. So they cannot behave recklessly. And also in China's imperial system, there have been so many rules put in place to limit or to restrict the behaviors of emperors. So, for example, I was given this story. Like at every meal, emperors were served 100 dishes. That's their standard. So you have 100 dishes served to them. So it's a table full of, you have like 10 dishes vertically and 10 dishes horizontally, right? 100 dishes. But only the 20 dishes in front of them, directly in front of them, are actually food that meant for them to eat. The other 80 dishes in the back are just there, for decoration, or, they're not really meant for him to eat. But if the emperor, so emperor it's almost like eating a buffet, he pick the food, that he wants to eat. But if he picked the same food consecutively over several days, then the eunuchs, serving him would give him signal telling him to stop. They would like cough, give him a warning saying that as emperor, you should now pick the same food consecutively because you are showing people what your favorite dishes are. And that's a sign of weakness because your enemies could poison you because they know what food you like. And also it's an attachment. So they're, even though they have, a whole feast served to them, but they're very restricted in their power. So there's so many imperial rules limiting what the emperors can do and cannot do. Unlike what people think today, that they can do whatever. It's not like that. So China has a very elaborate imperial system that provides the checks and balances to the royal family. All right, so let me move on. Dominique Rulu, thank you, Dominique. All right, so here's a question from Ryan Thornton, forwarded by Chris. Have you heard anything new about Chinese mercenaries who also fought in Ukraine getting taken away regarding enlisting in the PLA after coming home? There are very few mercenaries who fight for Ukraine. I mean, there are some, but comparatively speaking, with the ones who fight for Russia, they're very small in number. So I have not heard anything about them being taken away. Because they're being re-enlisted in the PLA. I have not heard, but the number is very small, even if that happened. All right, let me see. Okay, that seems to be all. I reached the bottom. Okay, so I see that's all. Okay, here's a question from Manu B. I'm foreigner living in Taiwan for more than a decade. I like your contents. Keep up the good work. Question: Will the U.S. support Taiwan, or it will leave like it did with Ukraine? Actually, this is actually one of the CCP narratives being heavily promoted in Taiwan. The CCP is trying to sow discord between the U.S. and Taiwan. So it has been promoting a narrative that the U.S. will leave Taiwan stranded in situations because of what has happened in Ukraine. But I do not believe that's the case, because the United States, particularly the Trump administration, has a particular interest in the security of the Pacific, right? It's not, I mean, the Ukraine-Russia war is in another continent, whereas the conflict in the Pacific is directly facing America. So the U.S. will absolutely defend Taiwan. Not only because of the geographical reason that it is in the Pacific Rim, but also, because the, Taiwan is, once Taiwan, the first island chain falls, then the CCP will have so much advantage in the Pacific. It will be devastating to the United States. So I think that's just a false narrative. It's a false narrative the CCP is aggressively pushing. And unfortunately, it has, to some extent, been effective in making the Taiwanese suspect Americans' support to the island country. So don't fall into that. It's a CCP narrative. Angry Bear. Well, thank you, Angry Bear. Says Ukraine foreign fighters are treated differently. Yeah, I have no doubt believe that the Ukraine mercenaries are treated better. But like the Chinese said, if they could get Ukraine visa, they would fight for the Ukrainians. Like this man, this man that Miss Ma, I mean not Miss Ma, Miss Chai interviewed, he's very smart. I mean, this man, this mercenary struck me as someone who has the intellect, and the compassion in his heart. He's really a good person. And he just wants to experience war because he's in the military, and he would fight. I think he would fight for Ukraine if he got a visa, but as a Chinese, it's difficult. So yeah. All right. Here's a Mike Stewart. Lei, my wife and I went to Shenyun yesterday. What a lovely performance. It was a packed house and we had a fantastic time. Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, Shenyun is actually, they're touring around the world until the end of May. So if you haven't seen it, you should go see it. Their tagline is "See China Before Communism," but they're under so much attack by medias like the New York Times, who's obsessive with Shenyun. The New York Times has published over a dozen articles attacking Shenyun in the past 12 months. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, yeah, Shenyun is a performing arts group. It's, Chinese culture program. Why would New York Times publish over a dozen articles attacking? I mean, its readers doesn't have that kind of interest in over a dozen articles consistently attacking a performing arts group that's trying to revive traditional Chinese culture around the world. So there's something going on between the New York Times and the CCP, because it doesn't, from a business perspective, it doesn't justify it, right? It's really bad business decision. Why would you devote your journalists on the subject that your audience isn't that interested in? Anyways, but Shenyun is under so much attack from the CCP and its affiliates in the US. And they have had bomb threats? Like they had bomb threats in Europe, in I think in Washington, DC, was it? The Kennedy centers. So you have all these people who, one of the CCP tactics to disrupt Shenyun and Falun Gong, many of the Shenyun performers practice Falun Gong, is that they will have CCP spies or people who work for the CCP, who claim they're Falun Gong and then cause problems. And they will send totally inappropriate letters, to theaters, claiming they're Falun Gong, saying crazy things. So then people can't tell who they really are. So they attribute these crazy behaviors to Falun Gong. I mean, it's just unbelievable. But I think the best thing you can do is go see the show and then judge for yourself what it is, right? I think all the propaganda that's being pushed out by certain Western media will inevitably make people curious to find out what this is all about. And once people go see the performance, they can judge what Shenyun is all about. So thank you for bringing it up. Anyways, let me see. Any other questions? Oh, here's a question. That's all. I think that's all. Am I reached the end? China's Martin Zhu, China would deploy electromagnetic pulse against the US if they invade. They know our tech is wrapped in or something. Yeah, okay, that's not addressed to me. All right. Someone said, Lei said Chinese care more about power through money. Maybe the New York Times got CCP money. I mean, it's pointing in that direction. I mean, I have no evidence to say that, right? But you think it from a business, from the journalism, would a leading American newspaper devote itself to over a dozen attack piece on a Chinese American performing arts group. It just doesn't, it doesn't make sense. So the motivation is something else. It's not business. It's not journalism. That's how I would leave it. And someone says, are you paid by Falun Gong? I think you didn't even spell Falun Gong. Falun. You didn't even spell Falun Gong correctly. Okay, I need to address this because I think people who have watched my program know that I really have sponsors. I turn down sponsors because, and people who watch my program know that I care more about independence and authenticity more than anything else. I turn down sponsors because I feel like once people give you money, then you have to say certain things, even for my sponsors. And I know I value my relations with my viewers more than anything. I even feel a little awkward to do sponsors to tell you, certain products are good. Because I think people are very smart. They know what to buy, what not to buy. And I'm here to tell you information about China. I'm not here to recommend you products, even though I can. So I'm very careful not to abuse that, not to abuse the authorities I have, right? The trust you have placed in me. So I purely rely on YouTube's ad revenue, and also your support, your donation. And I intentionally leave my operation very small. It's just me and Chris. And I do everything myself. So I tell you, if it's not because my passion for the subjects and also the love I have for my viewers, I really care about this relationship, this bond. Why would I want to do this? It's just, right? If I don't love what I do, why would I do this? So, and I remember when I first started doing this, I asked advice from a young lady, because I need advice from people who are on social media all the time. And she said, just remember one word: social media is all about authenticity. Even if you're not perfect, but as long as you're authentic and genuine and real, people will follow you. And I think it's so true. So no one is able to pay me. No one can afford to pay me to say what they want me to say. Let me put it that way. If it doesn't come from my heart, you wouldn't hear it from me. Okay, so let's leave it like that. All right. Wow, there's a lot of comments. Okay, so with that said, I'll end it here. So enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll see you next week. All right, bye.